Court is back in session in New York this morning in the civil rape and defamation trial against Donald Trump. And just hours before court reconvened, attorneys for the former president filed a new request for a mistrial, zeroing in on the judge and making accusations of, quote, pervasive, unfair and prejudicial rulings by the court in this case. This as accuser E. Jean Carroll is back on the stand today for a third day of testimony. NBC News correspondent Ron Allen is outside the courthouse here in New York, and here in the studio with me is NBC News legal analyst Denny Savalos. Ron, tell us about this defense motion today and what exactly Tacopina is claiming and what we're going to expect in court.
He's claiming that the judge has been biased in favor of E. Jean Carroll and that he has not been able to question her as aggressively as he would like. He raises a number of issues where the judge has ruled that he couldn't go further or sustained objections, basically trying to say that the judge is favoring her and not allowing him to do what he wants to do.
All right, Adam again back with something you'll like. In a packed federal courtroom, a Trump-affiliated lawyer under scrutiny admitted to hiding evidence, misleading the court, and participating in schemes to protect Trump. The judge lost composure as the lawyer's testimony fell apart in real time. Now, I need you to understand how rare this is. Federal judges are trained to maintain their cool. They've seen every trick in the book. They've dealt with uncooperative witnesses, shady lawyers, defendants who try everything to avoid accountability. But this was different. This was so egregious, so brazen, so completely unacceptable that the judge couldn't contain their fury. We're talking about actual yelling in a federal courtroom. The judge starts screaming at the legal team, demanding to know if they realize what just happened, if they understand that this lawyer just confessed to criminal conduct that could end their career and land them behind bars.
The U.S. Supreme Court has declined to hear President Donald Trump's appeal to overturn a $5 million verdict in favor of former Elle magazine columnist E. Jean Carroll. Trump argued the trial was unfair because the judge let jurors hear evidence of his alleged past sexual misconduct. Trump has been battling Carroll ever since she published an excerpt from a memoir in which she alleged Trump raped her in a dressing room in a Manhattan store in 1996. The jury did not find that Trump raped Carroll, as she had claimed, but it found him liable for sexually abusing Carroll and then defaming her. Trump's Justice Department has launched a criminal investigation targeting Carroll, as it has against several other of his adversaries. And here now is part of Trump's response on social media. He says, quote, surprisingly, the Supreme Court declined to review a fake case brought against me by a woman I never met. I will continue the fight against this weaponization and lawfare case against me, including the ridiculous claim of defamation, with all of my power and strength.
And then came the moment that made everyone's jaw drop. The judge didn't hesitate. There was no deliberation, no consulting with other officials, no waiting for tomorrow. The judge issued an immediate arrest order, right there, in front of everyone, in front of the cameras, in front of the reporters who were already typing furiously to get this story out. The bailiffs moved in, and this lawyer was taken into custody on the spot. Let that sink in for a moment. You show up to court as a defense attorney, and you leave in handcuffs because you accidentally confessed to crimes while trying to defend your client. That doesn't happen. That's not supposed to happen. But it did happen, and the legal world is still trying to process the shockwaves. Here's what we know from piecing together court transcripts, eyewitness accounts, and the frenzy of reporting that followed. Trump's legal team was in federal court for one of the many proceedings related to the vast web of investigations surrounding the former president and his administration. The exact case isn't completely clear yet, because there are so many legal battles happening simultaneously that it's genuinely hard to keep track. But whatever this particular hearing was about, it was serious enough that a federal judge was presiding over it, and the stakes were clearly enormous.
The U.S. Supreme Court says it will not hear an appeal in President Donald Trump's sexual abuse and defamation case right here in New York. Now, the president was hoping to overturn a verdict in that case that awarded E. Jean Carroll $5 million back in 2023. In 2019, Carroll alleged President Trump raped her in a department store in the 90s. She later filed a civil suit, including the allegations and that he had defamed her in his denials. A judge found the president had sexually abused and defamed Carroll before a jury handed down the financial decision. President Trump's team argues the judge allowed improper testimony in the case, but the Supreme Court rejected their efforts Monday, not expanding on their decision as to why. Now, the president is appealing another case involving Carroll. She was awarded more than $83 million in another defamation verdict in 2024. The president's team is fighting that decision in the lower courts. Reporting in New York.
During testimony or oral arguments, one of Trump's lawyers gets put on the hot seat. Maybe the judge starts pressing them on inconsistencies. Maybe opposing counsel is grilling them about something that doesn't add up. Maybe the lawyer just cracks under the pressure of trying to defend the indefensible. But whatever the trigger, under this intense scrutiny, this lawyer starts making admissions that they absolutely should not be making. They confess that they intentionally withheld documents that were supposed to be turned over during discovery. They admit that they actively misled the court about certain facts. They essentially confess that they've been participating in obstruction, hiding evidence, and lying to the federal court system. Imagine being in that courtroom as this unfolds. The other lawyers on Trump's team are probably having heart attacks. They're trying to send signals, trying to get this person to shut up, trying to do damage control. But it's too late. The words are out there on the official record. They're under oath. They're being transcribed by court reporters. There's no taking them back, no explaining them away, no pretending they didn't happen.
This morning, President Trump's close ally, U.S. Attorney Jeanine Pirro, is on thin ice. Trump slamming Pirro for dropping her case against former Olympian David Hearn, who was charged with vandalizing the newly renovated reflecting pool. The president's so furious, sources say he's privately mused to aides about whether he should fire her. And late yesterday, Pirro spotted at the White House for a meeting with the president.
I was disappointed with Jeanine Pirro, really disappointed with Jeanine Pirro. She folded like an umbrella.
Hearn was arrested after stopping to check out the damage while on a bike ride, saying he saw a piece of loose paint in the water and reached out and touched it. But on Friday, Pirro dropped the charges, saying documents from the Department of the Interior indicate the damage to the pool was not because of Hearn, but the result of a botched installation, blaming the contractors.
This lawyer just handed the prosecution the most devastating evidence they could ever hope for. And the judge's reaction? According to multiple people who were in that courtroom, the judge completely erupted. Not just sternly rebuking the lawyer, but actually yelling, asking if this person understands what they've just admitted to, if they realize they just confessed to obstruction of justice, to tampering with evidence, to lying to a federal court. These aren't minor ethical violations. These are serious federal crimes. These are the kinds of offenses that get lawyers disbarred and sent to federal prison. And this lawyer just admitted to all of it in open court while under oath. The judge had no choice at that point. When someone confesses to criminal conduct in your courtroom, you can't just let it slide. The judge has a duty to uphold the law and maintain the integrity of the judicial system. So the arrest order is issued, the bailiffs move in, and this Trump-affiliated lawyer is taken into custody right there in front of everyone. The media captured it. The court transcript recorded it. It's now part of the permanent record. You can't make this stuff up. Now, let's talk about what this means. Within hours of this happening, the story exploded across social media and news outlets. Legal analysts were calling it absolutely unprecedented. A complete meltdown of a legal defense, a potential turning point in Trump's entire legal situation. Because think about the implications here. One of Trump's own lawyers just admitted to criminal conduct related to Trump's defense. That opens up a whole world of questions that prosecutors are going to be salivating to explore. What evidence were they hiding? What lies were they telling? Who directed them to engage in this misconduct? Was Trump personally involved? Did Trump know what his lawyer was doing? These are the questions that are now going to be at the center of every investigation related to Trump. And here's where it gets even more explosive. This arrested lawyer is now in federal custody facing serious charges. They're looking at potential years in prison if convicted. So what's their best move? Cooperation, cutting a deal with prosecutors, agreeing to testify against Trump and anyone else involved in exchange for a reduced sentence. This is exactly what happened with Michael Cohen, Trump's former personal lawyer and fixer. Cohen did all kinds of shady stuff for Trump over the years. Then he got caught, got charged with crimes, and decided to cooperate with investigators. He testified against Trump, provided evidence, told prosecutors everything he knew, and he got a somewhat lighter sentence as a result. This newly arrested lawyer is almost certainly going to follow the same playbook. When you're facing years in federal prison, loyalty to a former client becomes a lot less important than saving your own skin. They're going to realize that Trump isn't going to save them. Trump isn't going to pardon them. Trump is going to distance himself and pretend he barely knew them. So, the rational choice is to cooperate, to tell prosecutors everything they know, to provide inside information about Trump's legal strategy, about what Trump knew and when, about what instructions Trump gave to his lawyers. And when that happens, it could be absolutely devastating for Trump's entire defense. We need to dig deeper into what actually went down here and what it means for Trump's legal situation, because this is genuinely one of the most significant developments we've seen in this entire saga. First, we need to understand what obstruction of justice and evidence tampering actually are in the legal sense. Obstruction of justice happens when someone interferes with a legal proceeding, when they try to prevent justice from being done. That can include destroying evidence, lying to investigators, intimidating witnesses, or hiding documents that you're legally required to turn over. Evidence tampering is specifically about altering, concealing, or destroying physical evidence. Both of these are serious federal crimes that carry significant prison time. When this lawyer admitted in court that they withheld documents and misled the court, they were essentially confessing to obstruction. They were admitting that they interfered with the legal process, that they prevented the court from having access to relevant information. That's why the judge had to act immediately. You can't just let someone confess to a crime in your courtroom and do nothing about it. The judge had a duty to respond, and respond they did. Now, the million-dollar question is, what exactly were they hiding? Court documents that have been released so far, and not everything is public yet, suggest that this lawyer had documents that were highly relevant to the case. Maybe emails, maybe financial records, maybe communications between Trump and his associates. Whatever these documents were, they were supposed to be turned over during discovery. Discovery is the legal process where both sides in a lawsuit share relevant evidence with each other. It's supposed to ensure that everyone has access to the facts and that trials are fair. But this lawyer apparently didn't turn over everything they were supposed to. They held back certain documents. Maybe they thought those documents were damaging to Trump. Maybe they were trying to protect Trump by keeping certain facts hidden. Maybe they were following instructions from higher up in Trump's organization. But whatever the reason, what they did was illegal. You can't just decide which evidence to turn over and which to hide. That's not how the legal system works. The rules of discovery exist for a reason. They ensure transparency and fairness. And when you get caught violating those rules, there are serious consequences. The thing that makes this even more explosive is that this confession happened under oath in open court. If this lawyer had admitted this privately to the judge, maybe in chambers, there might have been some opportunity to handle it quietly. But no, this happened in public with reporters present, with a court transcript being created in real time, with everything being documented for posterity. There's no walking this back. The confession is on the record. And that means prosecutors in any related case can now use this confession as evidence. They can point to this lawyer's sworn testimony admitting that they obstructed justice. That's devastating, not just for the lawyer, but for Trump's entire legal defense. Because now prosecutors know that Trump's legal team was hiding evidence. That's a huge red flag. That suggests there's something really damaging in those hidden documents. Otherwise, why hide them? Why take the risk of getting caught if there's nothing to hide? Prosecutors are going to be all over this. They're going to demand to see every document this lawyer withheld. They're going to investigate who else knew about the concealment. They're going to try to build a case that this wasn't just one rogue lawyer acting alone, but part of a broader scheme to obstruct justice. And the more they dig, the more they're likely to find. Because when one thread starts unraveling, the whole fabric starts coming apart. Let's talk about the pattern here because this isn't happening in isolation. This is part of a disturbing trend that has followed Trump throughout his career. Michael Cohen went to prison. Rudy Giuliani has been facing multiple legal issues and had his law license suspended. Sidney Powell pleaded guilty in the Georgia election interference case and is cooperating with prosecutors. Now this lawyer joins the list. It seems like every lawyer who works closely with Trump ends up in legal trouble eventually. Either they face criminal charges, or they lose their license, or they end up cooperating with investigators against Trump. So why does this keep happening? There are a few possible explanations. One is that Trump attracts unethical lawyers. Maybe the lawyers who are willing to work for Trump at this point are the ones who don't have strong ethical standards to begin with. The good lawyers, the ones who care about their professional reputation, they know that representing Trump is a career ender. They've seen what happened to Cohen, Giuliani, Powell, and others, so they stay away. That leaves Trump with lawyers who are willing to cut corners, willing to cross lines, willing to do whatever it takes to defend him, even if it's illegal. Another theory is that representing Trump requires doing unethical things. That Trump gives his lawyers instructions that force them to break the law or violate ethical rules. That Trump demands loyalty above legality. That he pressures his lawyers to hide evidence, to lie to courts, to obstruct investigations. And lawyers who want to keep their job, who want to stay in Trump's good graces, end up doing things they shouldn't. Then, when they get caught, Trump throws them under the bus and acts like he had no idea what they were doing. He distances himself, claims they acted alone, and moves on to the next lawyer who's willing to do his bidding. The truth is, probably some combination of both. Trump does seem to attract lawyers with questionable ethics, and he does seem to push them to cross lines. It's a toxic combination that has led to an astonishing number of his legal advisors ending up in serious trouble. The judge's reaction in this case is particularly notable because federal judges are usually pretty composed. They don't typically yell at lawyers. They maintain decorum in their courtrooms. But this judge apparently lost their cool completely. They started yelling about how this lawyer just admitted to career-ending criminal conduct. That tells you how serious this was. The judge was probably shocked and appalled that an officer of the court, a lawyer who's supposed to uphold the law, would openly admit to breaking it in front of everyone. The judge probably felt obligated to send a strong message that this kind of conduct won't be tolerated. Hence the immediate arrest order. The judge wanted everyone in that courtroom and everyone watching to know that if you lie to the court, if you hide evidence, if you obstruct justice, there will be immediate consequences. No delays, no second chances, you get arrested on the spot. That's a powerful deterrent message to send to other lawyers who might be considering similar conduct. Now let's talk about attorney-client privilege and how this all plays into it. Normally, when you hire a lawyer, your communications with that lawyer are protected by attorney-client privilege. Your lawyer can't be forced to testify about what you told them. That privilege exists so people can be honest with their lawyers and get proper legal advice without fear that their words will be used against them. But, and this is critically important, attorney-client privilege doesn't protect communications that are made in furtherance of a crime. If you're talking to your lawyer about how to commit a crime or cover up a crime, that's not privileged. The lawyer can be compelled to testify about that. So, the question becomes, what did Trump tell this lawyer? Were Trump's communications with this lawyer about legitimate legal defense, or were they about how to hide evidence and obstruct justice? If it's the latter, there's no privilege. The lawyer can testify. Prosecutors can force them to reveal everything, and that could be catastrophic for Trump. Everything he said to his lawyer could become public. Every instruction he gave, every strategy he discussed, everything he knew about the illegal activities could be exposed. The public perception of all this is absolutely devastating for Trump. Even people who support him, even people who think the investigations into him are politically motivated, have to look at this situation and think something isn't right here. Why do Trump's lawyers keep getting arrested? Why do they keep admitting to crimes? Why is there always this pattern of legal chaos and ethical violations around Trump's legal defense? It feeds into the narrative that Trump operates outside the law, that he surrounds himself with people who are willing to break rules, that his entire operation is corrupt. And every time something like this happens, every time another lawyer gets in trouble, it becomes harder for Trump to claim he's being persecuted unfairly. Because at a certain point, when enough of your associates end up in legal trouble, people start thinking, maybe the problem is you. Maybe you're the common denominator. Maybe all these lawyers wouldn't be getting arrested if they weren't doing illegal things at your direction or for your benefit. That's the perception that's starting to form. And it's a perception that Trump and his team are going to have a very hard time shaking. Looking ahead, we should expect several things to happen. First, this arrested lawyer is going to face criminal prosecution. They'll probably be charged with obstruction of justice at a minimum, maybe perjury if they lied under oath, maybe evidence tampering. They're going to have to decide whether to fight the charges or plead guilty and cooperate. Based on what we've seen in similar situations, the smart money is on cooperation. Most people in that situation take the deal. It's just rational self-interest. You reduce your sentence, you get it over with, you move on with your life. And when they cooperate, prosecutors are going to squeeze them for every bit of information they have. We're going to see a lot of sealed court filings and confidential proffer sessions where this lawyer tells prosecutors everything they know. Some of that might eventually become public, some might stay under seal. But regardless, it's going to inform how prosecutors approach their cases against Trump and potentially others in his orbit. The prosecutors will have inside information that they never could have gotten otherwise, and they'll use that to build stronger cases. We should also expect Trump to completely disavow this lawyer. He's probably already doing it, saying he barely knew them. They were a minor player, they acted on their own, Trump never told them to hide evidence. This is the classic Trump playbook. Distance yourself, blame the underling, claim ignorance. Whether anyone believes that, well, that depends on what evidence comes out. If the lawyer has emails or recordings or other proof that Trump was involved, Trump's denials will ring hollow. The other thing to watch is whether this triggers a broader investigation into Trump's entire legal team. If one lawyer was hiding evidence, were others doing the same? Was this an isolated incident or part of a pattern? Prosecutors might start looking at other Trump lawyers to see if they also violated ethical rules or broke laws. That could lead to more arrests, more cooperating witnesses, more revelations. It could snowball in a way that completely overwhelms Trump's ability to mount a coherent legal defense. Because how do you defend yourself when your own lawyers keep becoming witnesses against you? How do you maintain attorney-client privilege when the privilege doesn't apply because your discussions were about committing crimes? It's a nightmare scenario for any defendant, but especially for Trump, given how many legal problems he's currently facing. He's already dealing with multiple investigations, multiple cases, multiple potential indictments, and now he has to worry about his own lawyers flipping on him. This courtroom confession and arrest is not just about one lawyer making a mistake. It's potentially about exposing a pattern of obstruction and evidence concealment that could bring down Trump's entire legal strategy. And that's why this story is so huge. That's why it's dominating headlines. That's why everyone in the legal world is watching closely to see what comes next. Because what comes next could determine whether Trump faces serious legal consequences or whether he manages to escape accountability yet again. And right now, after this lawyer's confession and arrest, the odds are looking increasingly bad for Trump. The walls are closing in. The dominoes are starting to fall. Each new revelation, each new cooperating witness, each new admission of wrongdoing brings prosecutors closer to building a case that even Trump's political allies won't be able to defend. The question is no longer whether Trump did something wrong. The evidence is overwhelming that he did. The question is whether our legal system is capable of holding him accountable or whether he's going to find yet another way to avoid justice. What makes this moment particularly significant is that it comes at a time when Trump is already under unprecedented legal scrutiny. He's facing multiple investigations at the federal and state levels. He's been indicted in multiple jurisdictions. He's facing charges that range from financial fraud to election interference to mishandling classified documents. And now, one of his own lawyers has become a witness against him. That's a devastating blow to any defendant's legal strategy. The judge's decision to order immediate arrest sends a message that the courts are not going to tolerate misconduct from Trump's legal team. It says that no one is above the law, not even lawyers who think they can get away with hiding evidence. It's a reminder that the judicial system, despite all its flaws, still has mechanisms for holding people accountable when they break the rules. For Trump, this is a wake-up call. He can't keep surrounding himself with lawyers who are willing to break the law on his behalf and expect that there won't be consequences. Every time one of his lawyers gets caught, it creates more evidence, more witnesses, more headaches for his defense team. At some point, he's going to have to face the reality that the people he chooses to represent him are a reflection of him. And when those people keep getting arrested, it reflects badly on him. The legal community is watching this case closely because it has implications beyond just Trump. It raises questions about attorney ethics, about how far lawyers can go in defending their clients, about what happens when attorneys cross the line from zealous advocacy to criminal conduct. The judge's decision to order immediate arrest sets a precedent that other judges may follow in similar situations. It tells lawyers that if they break the rules, they will face consequences. For the American public, this is another chapter in the ongoing saga of Trump's legal troubles. But it's also a reminder that the rule of law still matters, that even powerful people can be held accountable, that the justice system, while imperfect, still has the ability to uncover the truth and punish wrongdoing. Whether that's enough to actually bring about accountability for Trump remains to be seen. But moments like this give hope to those who believe that no one is above the law. This lawyer's confession and arrest is just the latest twist in a story that has been unfolding for years. But it might also be the beginning of the end of Trump's ability to avoid legal consequences. Because now prosecutors have something they didn't have before. A cooperating witness who knows exactly what Trump's legal team was doing behind closed doors. And that knowledge could be the key to unlocking the entire case against him.